Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast, where our goal is to help you increase your reputation as a leader, increase your ability to influence others, and increase your ability to fully engage your team to deliver remarkable results. Hi, I'm Holley, a Maxwell Leadership facilitator and coach.
And I'm Goede, Executive Vice President with Maxwell Leadership. Welcome and thank you for joining. Well, today's title, I've heard this before. It could be from my parents. It could be from my wife. It could be, I don't know.
I may have said it to you.
maybe from someone sitting across from the table.
I may have said it.
We're going to talk about this phrase that Perry came up with is, what were you thinking? Right? And immediately, I hope whether you're exercising, whether you're riding in the car, you're sitting in the office, hopefully taking notes on the learner guide, you go, man, I'm familiar with that phrase.
Yes.
And so we're going to dive into this from a leadership perspective. I think you'll enjoy some of our content today. As we do, I want to encourage you to go to maxwellleadership.com/executive podcast. And there you can learn more about our 5 levels of leadership or the 360-degree leader, 2 of our staples when it comes to team development and culture enhancement. Well, as we begin talking about this, as I mentioned, you have heard this a few times. I know that I have. What's interesting about it is, and I was telling Perry right before we started recording, it's so true, this statement. It's the tone of how this question is asked. And it's either you're being curious or there's some concern there. Mm-hmm. I feel like when I was a child, most of it was major concern. There was not a whole lot of curiosity behind the question to me and what I was doing. And so we're going to actually look at it today from a leadership perspective and as a challenge. And it's just going to say, hey, how are you thinking? Like, are you thinking critically, or are you just reacting? Which, by the way, is the leading indicator of someone coming up to you saying, what were you thinking? Mm-hmm. Yep. Because that is going to come after the fact. And so we're going to look at this on the front end of how are you really thinking?
I can actually hear my dad going, you weren't thinking, were you, Perry? You weren't.
It wasn't even thinking.
I wasn't thinking.
That's true for some leaders too, for me at times as well.
So this critical thinking, I think, is a leadership superpower, and your ability to critically think through the things that are out in front of you and your team and your company to do that. There were a couple of books when I got into John Maxwell world 35 years ago. The books were coming out. One that I said I would never, ever read. And it was called Thinking for a Change. And then some things happened. And as always, someone said, you should read this book.
That's right.
So I did. And the idea of being a thinker never occurred to me. It was like I kind of just flow through life. So lots of great stuff. Not really going to go deep into that today, but this idea of can you develop the skill of critical thinking, I think can be a superpower for many leaders to help put you situationally for your strategies and your direction in your team. So
it's on the front end.
I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts.
Yeah, it's on the front end. And I love that you mentioned that. I was going to ask you about it because I know that book had a profound impact on you after you read it. And originally we're not going to read it. And
I wasn't.
So I hear
that and Today Matters. I wasn't going to read Today Matters either. It was a game changer.
And you helped us build a course.
That's one of my favorites. It's actually a game changer.
Yeah. So let's talk about critical thinking, right? It's a mental process where some of us will actually lean towards this a little bit more than others. Some of you are going to have to develop the learned behavior around it. But we do think that all leaders should dig into this a little bit, where you're doing some careful analysis, evaluations, and really interpretation of the information that you're receiving and the ideas that you're receiving. And so you're gonna question assumptions. You're gonna consider different perspectives. At the end of the day, though, one of the things through all of this processes, as you become a better critical thinker, you have to then make a decision. So what we're talking about today is not purposely delaying decisions, right? No. Because that is making a decision in itself.
Right.
We don't want to do that, but we want to just challenge the way that you go about it in a different way with using critical thinking.
And I like to think about critical thinking really cultivating my curiosity. And we talk here a lot about, are you invoking curiosity in your leadership? I think it's a miracle skill and something you should do a lot. John says that leaders are learners. So you're really, as a critical thinker, you're really learning in real time. It's not passive. You're engaging with the world. You're kind of refusing to accept the first or easiest answer sometimes. in leadership, stakes can be high. We're making decisions on our future. We've just been talking about the second half of the year and content we're going to offer and things we're going to do. And even now we're talking about 2026 and we're looking out. And so you're making decisions about that, and decisions without good thinking really is just making a guess and hoping I'm right. I think this is what we should do. I really want to get into, so what can we do to really get this critical thinking as a skill set?
Right. So what's the payoff for us, right? As leaders, great. You're like, I need to think a little bit differently, critical. What's the payoff? The first one is enhanced problem solving. I think this is where you're able to break things apart in a way to where you can look at it from different angles. It gets you the opportunity to maybe step outside the problem and have a different perspective versus just putting a Band-Aid on it to keep going. A lot of us work at such a pace and a fast pace that we're just like, hey, just go do that. And then all of a sudden that breaks again. The problem shows up again in a couple of weeks and you're like, just go do that. And you're putting the Band-Aid on it. But are we able to kind of step back and understand it from a different perspective? Second one is informed decision-making, where you weigh the evidence, not just opinions. I think there's circumstances. I think there's facts. Then there's some opinions. But you also avoid being swayed by the emotion of other people, or maybe even yourself. Because sometimes I know that even though I've been told I don't have emotions, I had a hard time getting that out for a minute there.
It's almost making you emotional.
I was almost emotional. Is that, I'm the best salesperson this guy's ever seen. Right? Like, and my emotions will lead into that. But how do you get out of that? Not only your emotions, but maybe your teams or others, and make an informed decision. And then finally, effective communication, to where you can then make the decision how you got there, and you can communicate that in a way very clear and engaging when you are presenting that to other people.
Well, I'll add to that too. If you have this ability to critical thinking, is that you develop a little bit of a resilience to being manipulated by opinions and things, that you can actually learn to separate fact from opinion. I was doing something the other day. My wife was sitting there and I saw something come across Instagram or whatever. I go, "Hey, when did this happen?" And she said, "Fake news. That's an AI generated thing." I go, how do you know this? Well, it's in her space, and she knows. I thought I didn't even know it was a fake. I just thought this must be a fact to do that. And I just saw some research. It came up in a political context, but saying that the way people present things to you today, you've got to be very careful about what is fact and what is their opinion. And people are very good. We're very good. I'm not just, we're all very good at presenting my belief as fact. And that's not always the case. It's correct. Misinformation sometimes. So as a critical thinker, can you be resilient to this manipulation of a bunch of opinions that are coming at you, and really pull out what are the facts here? And I think that's a big piece of that.
Let me add to that. So what's interesting about that is that I think this is a skill that also helps you, if you do it and understand it properly, as people are persuasively communicating that may not be factual, to where you can receive that in a way and process it and still be curious, which we talk about, versus completely disengaging or becoming combative to it. I know, like, I'll give you an example. Someone in my life is extremely passionate, and the way they say things, it comes across as that is the end all be all.
That's the way it is. Yeah.
And I will start saying, no, that's not how it is. Right. But if I was able to enhance my critical thinking and handle that internally by being additionally curious and think through this process, and then re-engaging, boy, the connection there between me and that individual would be a lot closer, a lot tighter, which is the foundation to all of our leadership. So anyways, I just wanted to jump in for a minute, because I was thinking,
I love that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, because there are a lot of people that are just like, and there's no facts behind it.
But as a sales leader, you lead a sales team. I've led a sales team for years, and I'm telling you, I had a sales exec once. His favorite line was, "You're entitled to your view, to your opinions, but you're not entitled to manipulate the facts to make it fit your narrative." I go, "Oh, yeah."
Oh, wait a minute.
But then when I had his job later, I go, "Oh yeah, people come in here and tell me all kinds of things, why it couldn't happen. Was that a fact? No,
right.
no." And so I need to be I need to be critically thinking through what are the components here, what am I analyzing, what am I. Another point I would add was about this continuous learning. Is that if I'm in a mode of continuous learning, I'm always adding to my base of being able to sort through and sift through things and do some thinking on how I want things to play out in my strategies, in my direction, what we're trying to do.
Yeah. So let me go back to this example I just kind of interrupted you on, and with what you just talked about, continuous learning, and then thinking about John's 15 invaluable laws of growth, where he talks about the law of curiosity, which we were just talking about. And growth begins with a mindset where, again, in my example, I was able to take that data in, or that opinion, persuasive thought, and then be able to ask some questions to get to that point where I'm being curious about that, to be able to decipher it. And critical thinking is that curiosity applied with that discipline over and over and over again gives you the ability to think differently than how sometimes I do it in the moment, which is, we started off, I thought I'm just reacting.
Right.
I'm not even processing that. And so where we're going with this is this is a skill set that Perry and I are giving you an insight on projects, on big things, but also in conversations, in order for you to stay connected to people.
I like that. Curiosity applied with discipline. I like that. So let's get practical for a moment and give a couple ideas. So if you say, yes, I need to do a better job at critical thinking. I need to apply some think time to where we're going, what our direction is, where we want to end up, those types of things. Let's just give them a couple ideas.
Yeah,
one of them was, this may seem incredibly obvious, but you need to ask thoughtful questions. And I say that, it's not that ridiculous as when I read it, but sometimes I don't ask thoughtful questions. I accept information at face value. I need to dig deeper. I need to be curious. I need to find out what's behind that. What evidence supports what you're telling me? Tell me where that came from. And I know in our world, we're getting a lot of things coming at us that we can, that sounds great. Let's do that. No. Tell me more about that. Right. Tell me more. It's a great little phrase I use a lot to do that. But I think if we start asking, don't just accept things at face value, ask thoughtful questions to get underneath what it is, to make sure, before I process it, do I have it right?
Yeah. That's good. Second one is evaluate information sources. Okay. Where is this coming from? Is it credible? Is it maybe a bias that they have? I was on a call yesterday. I was coaching an executive, and we were talking about some things, and then we were going through just some personal updates. And he said, man, it was fascinating. He said, I was working with an organization, and I actually took an assessment that identified what my bias is in life in general. And he began to tell me about it. And I was like, man, that's fascinating. I wonder what my natural bias is, because we all have them, right? And by the way, what my natural bias is how I'm going to give you information. Another thing I was thinking about, we're sitting in here with studio, and Wade's producing for us today, and making sure Riverside's running. And one of the things that my team had me doing a while ago was doing these videos, right? It's not something, I don't do social media really well. So they probably saw the first couple of videos, and they were like, what are you thinking? It's probably what they said, right? Because I hadn't thought about making sure I had the right equipment. Well, I'm in here with Wade, and Wade's like, hey, you should just get this mic that you just plug into the bottom of your phone. And I was like, okay. So I ordered it. He sent me the link. I ordered it. Why? Because I thought about, well, he's in technology. I don't even know how to turn a computer on, let alone talking to a phone. And he's used these mics before. So immediately I evaluated the information that came from the source, and was like, I'm going to get it. So then another Amazon box showed up at my house, but that's his fault, not my fault. But I think we do that a lot. And by the way, be careful when you're giving information, because I think you also give it with your own bias. And so you want to be a credible source for other people as well.
Yeah, Wade, you want to make sure that he knows how to turn that thing off. Don't want you recording things we don't want to hear.
That's right.
Okay. That's right. Another critical thinking best practice is to consider multiple perspectives.
That's so good.
Kind of asking yourself, what am I missing here? Who sees this differently? I just was on a coaching call, and one of the guys that I coach, he said, I'm trying to get more disagreement in my meetings. I want everybody just nods their head and goes along with me. He goes, I'm encouraging dissension, but nobody will dissent. So he said, I had to and what am I missing? Tell me what's another way to look at this? He said, I had to assign every meeting I assign. Okay, you're the devil's advocate. And he gives them permission. Now you know that people aren't going to think you're being a jerk. They know that you're expected, that you have an obligation to dissent. That we just heard that somewhere recently.
Yes.
Obligation to dissent was one of those. Yeah,
I love it. One of the things that I think I want to challenge everybody, including myself, because I thought about it as you were just talking, and it's really personal, is this multiple perspectives. I want to encourage you to do this even more in your personal life than even maybe your professional life.
That's good. Yeah.
Because I think we get more comfortable. I think I know with our own bias and our own perspectives with our family. And yet, if we would do this as we're coaching you to do at the office, I think you would have a different environment and understand different perspectives here personally.
Well, you just mentioned bias. One of them that is very obvious to me that I have is, and everybody I think has this, among confirmation biases. I know what I think, and so I'm always looking, I'm looking for proof. I'm looking for validation and verification that I'm right.
Yes.
And so it could be whatever I believe. I'm looking for evidence to do that. I'm not open to other perspectives. I'm not open to how could that be different. We were watching news the other night, and I said, I just love to ask her, how did she come up with that? Because I totally disagree with what was said, but I'm open to is there something I don't know? Where did that come from? How could you possibly think that? But if you're face to face, it probably would have been a fight. I don't want to fight. I just want to. I'm curious because I'm critically thinking through this. And you just said something I can't believe. So if I can have that in my work and people challenge my thinking and we get the best thinking out of this, I do too.
Number 4 for you is embrace uncertainty.
What?
Yeah. So this is great. Not every decision will have all the facts. This is a problem for me. I feel like I can get as much data as possible, right, before I move. And then what I've learned is that it's okay if I revise kind of my thought, my position once new things come along. It's as simple as, man, I didn't know that before. Now that I know that, my whatever is this way. Now, I want to encourage you. I said this early on, and I can only say this. I'm going to repeat it a couple of times in this episode because I was going to say recovering, but I probably still am. We'll get paralysis because of wanting to have all the data, wanting to know, was the source correct? Wanting to know, did I ask the right questions? Did I ask enough people? And that's not what we're coaching you on here, right? Because then people will really be saying like, what were you thinking? Because you just never made a decision. So we're not saying that. We're just saying, hey, no, we want to encourage you to make decisions faster because we believe that the faster you make decision, the more success that project, that decision has. But just know you're going to have uncertainty as you make those decisions. As you go through critical thinking, as you enhance that, you're not going to be able to answer all those questions.
But if you're in that, go back to the continuous learning before us. So even if I make a wrong decision, okay, now by critically addressing it, I'll make much better decisions in the future just by owning that mistake that we talked about previously. Number 5 says, engage in diverse conversations. Do you talk with people who think differently, that are differently, that have different backgrounds than you? And most of us have spent a lot of effort to building a diverse team of individuals. They're not all like us, thankfully. But are you leveraging those diverse perspectives, those diverse backgrounds, those diverse way of thinking, and just boldly asking, what do you think? Where would you do? I'm just thinking even the diversity, the generational diversity about, so I'm the old guy, I got a bunch of young guys. So receiving from them, how would you do this? What do you think? You asking Wade, what's the technology I could use? You and I don't know, but he knew. But that was, now your knowledge is expanded, your thinking is expanded on solutions you could use. So I love that one, to saying, we tend to only talk to people that think like us. Hey, what about talking to people that don't think like us?
That's right. Oh, that's so good. Well, we like to stay with the number 5 around here because of the 5 levels of leadership. But I got a bonus tip for you today. Another item that I just want to share with you is when you're asking questions. This is a pet peeve of mine, and so I thought I'd just air it here in front of millions of our closest friends. Don't ask questions because you're testing someone, or this even gets me more. Don't be asking questions. I call them leading questions. You think about watching some of these attorneys.
Yeah, law shows. Yeah.
Okay, look. I'm not on trial here. Like, don't be asking me in a way. And I have some people that I've come to mind to think about this. Is like, No. I like genuinely ask those questions because, by the way, we can tell. And there's a big difference in your thinking and critical thinking of asking questions in a way to learn. We've talked a word about curious versus the fact that you're trying to test someone, whether they're right or wrong, to prove it to you, or that you are trying to ask questions in a way to get people to believe what you believe. Like that's not the way to go about this. That's not what we're talking about in here. And so that's your little bonus
I love it.
pro tip from Perry Holley.
Yeah. I was working with a senior leader, and she had a new initiative she was going to roll out, pretty big deal. And we were talking about, she said, I'm nervous that I haven't got it all together. I go, well, have you, thinking about critical thinking. Tell me about your thinking. Tell me about your process. And she said, here's what I'm going to do. After we went through it, she said, I'm going to invite 3 groups into the room. And so she got frontline people, middle managers from the organization, and some of her peers, her level. And she presented it to all of them and asked them one question: what are you seeing that I'm not seeing? What am I missing here?
So good.
And she said, I said, well, how'd that go? She said, well, it was humbling. And what I learned was there were some ripple effects from the decisions I was making that I had not considered that other groups would be effective. And so I just revised the plan, and it rolled out much better. I thought, wow, that's critical thinking to the, I thought through it. I got a plan. I have a direction, but then I'm going to ask other people to take it apart.
What's awesome about this is she still controlled the narrative. Okay. So we're not talking about this collaboration to get to a point, right? It was almost like, hey, this is where I'm at. What am I what am I missing? What are my thoughts? Too many leaders will come in and say, hey, what do you guys think about what we should do here?
Right.
Well, then you got a wire, and then you got a storm.
And they tell you what you want to hear.
And all that stuff. Yeah. It's like, no, okay, so here's an option, or here's an option. Let's talk about this. Like, control the narrative when you do that. So, well, I'm going to wrap up with a couple of thoughts as we go through here. And one of the things we want you to do is we just really want you to pause. We want you to pause and think critically, to be able to make better decisions, not to be able to react. And when you do that, we talk about buy-in, and we talk about the team buying into the leader, and the team buying into how you're leading before they really buy into anything else inside the company. And so they're going to look to you to be that critical thinker. I think also I want to encourage you to share how you go about making decisions, how you go about thinking, what did you do? Because it's contagious, and then your team will begin to think about it just a little bit differently as well. And so here's your challenge for this week. Think about a decision that you're facing right now. What's something that you've got to decide on? It could be big, it could be small, whatever it is. But instead of just like reacting and running and going and doing it, here's a checklist for you, okay? And Perry put this together. I'm sure it's in your show notes if you want to download it there. But love these 5 questions. As I was looking at them before our session today, I thought, man, I need to have these somewhere in front of me all the time. What's the real problem? Here's question number 1. Number 2, what are my assumptions about that? That is a great question to ask and sit down, because we don't ever want to tell ourselves the story of what our assumptions are. But if we force ourselves to write down some answers on that, you'd be surprised what comes out. Number 3, who would see this differently? Who could add value to this? Once you've got a direction, remember, keep control of the narrative. What's the evidence, one way or another? And then what's the risk of being wrong? This question right here for me, I learned this a while ago. I used to think it was a lot bigger than it really was. And so it would paralyze me. Back to my paralysis. I told you I was going to name it 3 times. That's it. In the beginning, don't paralyze this, right? Because and the risk ends up not being as big as you think. Oftentimes I would talk through this with Mark or John, and they'd be like, and so what? Like, it's okay. Like, if that's the worst, then we're good. So John says, the leader who learns to think well leads well. Critical thinking isn't a one-time exercise. This is something that we're hoping it becomes a habit for you, whether it's in the decision-making or even as we were talking halfway through about conversations and how you're thinking while you're having conversations.
Yeah. I remember Abershoff in his book, It's Your Ship, he said, I want you to make the decision. Here's 3 criteria, though. If it's going to kill somebody, hurt the ship, or cost taxpayer money, don't do it. Other than that, go.
Yeah. We'll cover everything else. Yeah. I love it.
All right. Great stuff. And thank you again. If you would like to get that learner guide Chris mentioned, or learn about our offerings, our other podcasts offerings, you can do all that at Maxwell Leadership. maxwellleadership.com/executive podcast. You can also leave a question or a comment for us there. We love hearing from you. So grateful you spend this time with us today. That's all from the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast.